Today's war for Moscow is not a war for resources or territories, rather it is a war for our very existence. Now there is a very active direct struggle, an open struggle to determine who will be the successor. And I'm very curious to understand as to why Buddhists who believe in non-violence and should not offend even a ladybug or a fly are committing such heinous war crimes. Hello and welcome to Ukraine in Flames, a special project by Ukraine Media Centre and NGO Euroland Course. And I'm your host, Matt Wickham. In this episode, we discuss the decolonization process of the modern Russian Federation and the certain ethnicities and communities that live under an oppressive Russian regime. If you want to learn more about this subject, please continue watching this video and don't forget to press subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Mykhailo, an expert at the Ukrainian Strategic Studies Center, describes the current war with Moscow as a critical struggle for survival, not only for Ukraine, but for all nations oppressed by Russia. He emphasizes the need for Russia's disintegration into independent states to ensure a lasting peace. He also addresses the West's fear of a Russian collapse, stressing that historical patterns show that Russia, regardless of its form, remains a tyrannical power that must be dismantled to end its aggression and oppression. Today's war for Moscow is not a war for resources or territories, rather it is a war for our very existence, and it is largely existential for others as well as ourselves. This war is also fatal for all of the enslaved nations that now reside in Russian-occupied territories. We are well aware that Moscow has always engaged in armed conflicts with us, using the same tactics. These methods included hybrid warfare, attack strategy, and population destruction. However, this war must be unlike any other that Moscow has fought against us. It must be their final one. And we are all well aware that this war can only end in one way: if this vast territory is divided into a number of national states. If the nations that were once enslaved by Moscow each establish their own sovereign state, only then this war can come to an end. As a result, the war is existential not only for us but also for the countries that live on this vast, colossal territory. When we began monitoring Moscow's information space 2.5 years ago to better understand what was going on, we focused on military topics with Yuriy, Oliynyk, and discovered that there were many other perspectives on the war. Russia is attempting to resolve internal conflicts by sending representatives from enslaved nations to fight in Ukraine. Earlier this year, during the Bandera readings, we decided to involve the students who wrote essays for the Bandera readings contest as future experts, i.e. experts in each region of the Russian Federation. However, we decided to divide the Russian Federation's territory in a different way than the current administrative territorial structure, which is an entirely artificial system. And as we can see, it has undergone numerous changes over the last 30 years. We decided that we needed to monitor this vast territory through the lands where certain nationalities enslaved by Moscow reside. And so this is why we are monitoring. Unfortunately, we do not have enough people, so we have prioritized most of the important regions. However, we encourage everyone to join our project because Moscow has enslaved many more nations than the 30 regions we monitor. As a result, we strongly encourage everyone to participate in this important project because I am confident that when national movements begin to emerge in Moscow, it will collapse. Unfortunately, many representatives of the country known as Western democracies are concerned about the Russian Federation's collapse. Many Western democracies, as they did 33 years ago when the Soviet Union was collapsing, believed that the Soviet Union could be transformed, but were concerned about its disintegration. Although historical experience shows that no matter what Russia calls itself, whether it is the Moscow Tsardom, the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, the Russian Federation, or something else, it will be the same tyrannical state that will try to implement its intervention in neighboring territories, as well as forcefully hold and oppress all nations that have ended up on its territory at some point. Unfortunately, European and American societies still fear this collapse, but we must demonstrate to them that this is the only way to end the war and ensure the victory of enslaved nations. Yuriy Oliynyk, head of the research programs at the Ukrainian Strategic Center, is next and discusses the significant events in Russia over the last 6 months, including Putin's re-election, changes in government, and the removal of former defense minister Shoigu. Oliynyk also sheds light on the rising internal conflicts, particularly within the Kadyrov clan and in Dagestan, where protests and religious tensions are escalating, indicating growing instability within the country. If you look at Russia in general, the major events this year, these 6 months, have been Putin's election and the subsequent changes in the government, which have demonstrated a reset, the removal of Shoigu, and some explainable restrictions on Patrushev. The fact that Mykhailo remained prime minister is likely due to Chinese influence. This can sometimes reveal more about the Russian conventional system than the actual elections. But not only the election. What reveals more about people's attitude and the problems they face is their perception that the economic crisis is worsening. For example, more sanctions are added, including the most recent sanctions imposed on Russia in June. There are also major environmental issues. We see a wide range beginning in Orenburg and spreading to Buryatia, Siberia, and other regions. Floods and fires, all of this has a negative impact on people's attitudes and is shaking things up at the middle level. From a qualitative standpoint, tension is rising around the Kadyrov clan, which is an unknown state, a sick condition. Now there is a very active direct struggle, an open struggle to determine who will be the successor. Apti Alodinov, the Akhmat battalion commander, is most likely receiving support from the Kremlin, but the Kadyrovs have their own plans. That is, in the near future, in the coming months, we can anticipate an increase in conflict. However, Dagestan is currently experiencing one of Russia's most massive conflicts, which began last year. We saw protests in Mykhailo against mobilization and more specifically against Jews. There are now massive protests and ongoing environmental issues. We also see religious issues and attacks on opposing religious figures. In particular, one of the Batlug's imams had his house burnt down in May of this year. And Yuriy Syrotiuk, director of the Ukrainian Strategic Studies Center, junior sergeant of the 5th Separate Assault Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, focusing on Russia's Buddhist regions of Buryatia, Kyiv-Mohyla, and Tuva, highlights cultural suppression and the potential for change. He also notes the surprising presence of Buddhist populations in these areas, contrasting their peaceful beliefs with their involvement in the war against Ukraine. Let's listen. They assigned me to monitor 3 Buddhist people in Russia, Buryatia, Kyiv-Mohyla, and Tuva. Some may be surprised to learn that there are entire regions of Russia populated by Buddhists. By the way, the Kalmucks generally live along the Volga, or at least close to it. And if you were to take a look at the Moscow news, everything seems fine. There is a local representative, a friend of Putin from the United Russia Party, who is building and issuing orders. What drew me to these Buddhist people? Well, I am part of the 5th Separate Kyiv Assault Brigade and the 11th Separate Guards Landing Brigade from Buryatia is fighting us. We have a blue-yellow state flag, while theirs is blue-yellow with white splashes. And I'm very curious to understand as to why Buddhists who believe in non-violence and should not offend even a ladybug or a fly are committing such heinous war crimes. While studying each region separately, we can identify pain points, because regardless of what Russia does, these 3 Mongolians who practice Buddhism have their own identity. They are Buddhists, and now we see some very interesting processes. For example, the Buryat language department at the Buryat National University has been closed. That is, even at the National University, you cannot study the local language, which is the state language. However, the Buryat language is taught in Buddhist datsans, or Buddhist religious associations. Unfortunately, this is the situation in which all 3 Buddhist subjects find themselves. Tuva has a slightly better situation, however, they are a minority. In my opinion, the religious factor has the potential to play a significant role in future destructive processes involving the empire. decolonization of the empire and a positive role in the process of a national revival. For example, in January this year, special commissions were established at the FSB level in Russia to combat separatism and nationalism in 3 regions. In these, Bryansk, Kursk, and Buryatia. So the question is, what type of separatism in these regions is Russia concerned about? You've been watching the special project by Ukraine Media Center and NGO Euro-Atlantic course dedicated to the Russian-Ukrainian War, Ukraine in Flames. In the description under this video, you can find more information on how you can help Ukraine fight Russian aggression. If you find our work useful, please like and share this video. Slava Ukraini!